veterans of all wars, especially the veterans of the Vietnam War, and to the families, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, spouses, and comrades, to those who have given their lives in the service of our country, to the families of the MIA, we extend our most sincere and heartfelt welcome. Commencing our program, I would like to call on Rabbi Levine of the United Jewish Church, Synagogue, for the invocation. Rabbi Levine.
Rise. Our God, God of all those who came before us, of every race and nation, we gather here this afternoon in pain and in pride to dedicate this monument to those who fell serving their country during the Vietnam War. It hurts to contemplate the deaths of young men with so much to live for, so much potential cruelly snuffed out. But our hearts are uplifted today, knowing that the greater Danbury community will not allow their memories to die, will pay tribute to the sacrifices they made, and will become wiser from our pain. This monument will do more than commemorate death. It celebrates humanity in the midst of destruction, compassion in the midst of carnage. A learned sage once said, men and nations sometimes behave wisely once they've exhausted all other alternatives. Our nation did not always act wisely during those years, and we must assert the belief that never again shall our government send people to die without real consensus to be there, and without clear sense that it is in our national interest. We ask your help in this, O Lord. Grant us consolation, give us hope, and remind us not so much of the deaths of these young people, but of their lives and all they meant to us. And may this monument bring some measure of peace to our homes and our hearts. And join me in saying, Amen.
Please remain standing for the playing of the national anthem, and I invite you to sing along.
Color guard, bring your units to present arms. March squad. Up hands, pull, present arms.
Please be seated. I would like to acquaint you with the people on the podium. We have met Rabbi Robert Levine, Richard Case is the chairman of the Greater Danbury Vietnam Veterans Memorial Committee, assisted by John Hill, the co-chairman and also one of the co-founders, James Purcell, the treasurer of the committee, Jack Burrows, also committee member and the artist who conceived the first rendition of this monument, Pat Waldrum, a committee member and director of Veterans Affairs, Joseph Sauer, mayor of the city, Mayor James Dyer, Colonel David Golan, Major General Herbert Riley, Chaplain Timothy Steeves, Father Stanley Rousseau, and George Corris, the sculptor of this monument. Congressman John Rowland is presently at the Brookfield Bicentennial. He will join us later in our reception. We would like to introduce to you the first speaker of the afternoon, Richard Case, who along with John Hill were the two members of the founding committee. They conceived the first idea 5 years ago, and they founded a committee made up of the aforementioned persons that I mentioned earlier, and Richard has served as president and chairman of the Greater Danbury Vietnam Veterans Memorial Committee. He has served nearly on a daily basis for all these past 5 years. He has been the inspirational and the motivating force in bringing together the various parts and efforts of all of our people to today's realization. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Case.
Honored guests, members of the dais, ladies and gentlemen. All men have dreams, and some of us are lucky enough to see them come to realization. In that regard, 1988 will always be a highlight in my life. Presiding over a committee of citizen volunteers whose love for a cause so deserving has been a distinct honor and privilege. We often hear the phrase, let's put war, especially the Vietnam War, behind us. But far too many families in this country cannot. For the loved ones of those who are still missing and those who paid the ultimate price, there can be no forgetting. I hope America never forgets the lessons of Vietnam and the price we paid, and that we learn from that experience and pass it on to our future generations in hopes that their leaders will not make the same mistakes that the leaders of our generations made. Throughout the past 5 years, this committee has grown ever closer to one another, much like the veterans of a conflict. The teamwork, the ingenuity, and sometimes just sheer determination have all brought us to the dedication of this memorial today. To them all, I say thank you. To the people of the city of Danbury and the surrounding towns that make up the Greater Danbury community, thank you. To the Vietnam veteran, I say stand tall and be proud. You have served well. Let no man ever tell you that your tour of duty in Vietnam was anything less than the noblest and most selfless expression of your love for your country. This memorial is a testimonial to each and every one of you. By its presence, the people of Greater Danbury are saying to you, welcome home. God bless you, and well done. I ask all Vietnam veterans to make on this day at this memorial a new commitment to yourselves and to your families. Our war is over, but we will never forget it as long as we live. Suppress the bad memories and remember the courage, the strength, and the tenacity of the men and women with whom you served. But beware, these are not the attributes of the Vietnam veteran alone. They're characteristic of the American people, the people who went before you, people who stand alongside of you right now, and God willing, the future generations to come. We have an obligation to those who died, an obligation to monitor our government and its leaders to ensure that they never, ever commit our most precious product and our most precious commodity, the youth of this country, to any cause unless they are totally committed, not as politicians, but as a nation. At the end of this ceremony, we invite you all to come forward to view the memorial up close. We ask you to form a line to my left here in an orderly manner and to pass across the front of the memorial. And as you pass that memorial and you look at it closely and you read the names, I ask you to think about a poem written by Archibald MacLeish, the young dead soldier. In it he says, "Whether our lives and our death were for peace and a new hope, or for nothing, we cannot say. It is you who must say this. We give you our deaths. You must give them their meaning. We were young. We died. Remember us. Remember us."
Thank you, Richard, for that most inspiring address. To give the official welcome on behalf of our city, I would like to call on Mayor Joseph Sauer. Mayor Sauer is himself a veteran, having served with distinction in the Korean conflict. He and his family have served our city in many capacities, spanning several decades. Joe recently retired as an outstanding school principal and is serving as our current mayor. Please welcome our Chief Executive, Mayor Joseph Sauer.
Thank you, Gino, Reverend clergy, members of the dais, and of course, friends, family, and Vietnam veterans. There's a special time in a city's history when all its citizens are brought together by a common spirit. Today is one of those days. As I look about on all of you, I can't help but feel the emotion of the moment. There's a spirit here today which many Vietnam veterans never had the opportunity to feel upon their initial return to the United States. As time has passed, and as we have learned more about the true role these brave people served, the proper spirit is now upon us. Of course, we are here today to dedicate a new monument. But the event is far more important than that. On this, the eve of Memorial Day, we are here to say a special thank you to the 47 people whose names are listed on this Vietnam Veterans Memorial Monument, and we are here to tell their family and friends that we care, and that we shall be eternally grateful for their sacrifice. Some of the people whose names appear on this monument are among the confirmed casualties of the Vietnam War. Others are still listed as missing in action. Words cannot convey the grief and anguish felt by their families and colleagues. That's why, in my mind, this monument and this day are so very special. The concept behind this monument is exceptionally symbolic. By showing a soldier carrying a Vietnamese child, we are reminded of the true purpose of the soldier's mission. They want to help the South Vietnamese and to allow their future generations, represented by the child, to live a life of freedom. Thanks to the creation of this monument in Danbury, future generations of Americans will forever be reminded of these soldiers' cause. While it would be impossible for me to thank everyone who was responsible for making this day a success, I would like to thank the members of the Greater Danbury Vietnam Veterans Memorial Committee, and in particular, Richard Cacase, the chairman, Jack Barrows, who drew the initial conceptual drawing for the monument, Bill Shaw, one of Danbury's councilmen, who was instrumental in organizing this day, Pat Waldron, director of Danbury's Veterans Advisory Center, John Hill, Jim Purcell, and Larry Landeman. I'd also like to compliment the work of the sculptor George Karos for doing such a magnificent job. Finally, I need to read this letter to Richard Cacase publicly. Dear Richard, this is the day that you rightfully get to bask in the spotlight for all of the time you have spent preparing for the dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Monument. It is true that you have had help from a solid corps of volunteers and friends. However, you are the person who took the initiative and had the fortitude to bring this dream to a successful conclusion. Indeed, you had the courage and dedication to see the project through. As a war veteran myself, I know how much this monument means to the friends, family members, and fellow veterans who are acquainted with the names on this shrine. As the years go by, our memory tends to erase the pain and sorrow, ever so slowly. As citizens, we move forward with our lives and work. But thanks to the countless hours of time you have devoted to this project, we will always, for generations to come, remember the persons who truly gave the supreme sacrifice for their country and for us. From the bottom of my heart, and on behalf of all the citizens of Danbury and its neighbors, I say thank you for a job well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Sauer. You alluded to George Karos, the sculptor. George was born in Greece. He graduated from the Academy of the Fine Arts in Athens. He studied metal casting techniques in Italy and Spain. He had served as an assistant to the foremost sculptor, Jacques Lipsitz. He was a recipient of many awards. His works were shown on Channel 13 TV. He's a professor of art at the State University of New York at Stony Brook. Ladies and gentlemen, the creator and artist of this great, magnificent work of art, George Karos, for a few remarks.
For your kind introduction. I don't know really who had the guts to put a sculptor in front of microphone, but I would like to assure you that he who honors a sculptor, he honors himself. And now relax, I'll not be very brief because whatever I wanted to say, it is in there. I would like only to thank the whole team, and make no mistake, this is a team's work project, who worked and gave reality to a dream. First of all, I would like to thank the primary dreamer, Mr. Richard Cacase, and his friend, Mr. John Hill, because without them, this monument would have not been the same, if it were a monument at all. They supplied me with the uniform, with the helmet, the M16 rifle, the shoes, the sandals, the map, the medals, and they also were looking constantly over my shoulder to see what I'm doing. They really deserve a post-war medal for that. I also would like to thank Mr. Jack Barrows for his helping hand, and also Mr. Canzaniero for the granite base. Finally, last but not least, I would like to thank Mr. Bob Spring for his great job in casting his sculpture in bronze. His foundry, the Mother Foundry, served for half a century now the best of sculptors, and that includes me too. And now a few words about the monument. Unlike many other monuments who glorify the war, this monument glorifies humanity and compassion. It reveals another side of the war, it depicts another type of heroism, the heroism to remain humane and compassionate even under the worst of circumstances. You'll soon see this monument depicts a combat soldier who holds and shields a frightened Vietnamese child, a God's child who lives the terror of the war, a war that she cannot understand. And then, as you see, the soldier with his big eyes in deep philosophical thoughts, you wonder if he does not identify himself with that child. You see, he too lives and fights a war with two fronts, the other being at home, a war that he himself did not completely understand. Thank you very much.
Very much, George. The next speaker is Colonel David Bowen. In time of war, our country calls upon its citizen service people to carry out its commitments. Colonel Bowen exemplifies the best in that tradition. He enlisted in the National Guard, rose through the ranks to his present rank of colonel, and during these past 28 years, he also pursued a career in education, serving as a teacher, principal, and superintendent of schools. He presently serves as Chief of Staff of the Connecticut Army National Guard. Truly exemplifies the best of all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome please, Colonel David Bowen.
Reverend clergy, members of the distinguished dais, Major General Riley, veterans, ladies and gentlemen, fellow members in the uniform here today. America is a land of many heroes. In this great state, we have had 52 wartime recipients of the Medal of Honor. One of the first Connecticut recipients was a 15-year-old boy by the name of Oscar Peck from Bridgeport, Connecticut in 1862. The latest was Army Private First Class Daniel J. Shea of Norwalk, who died in action in the jungle in Vietnam. Today we gather to honor Oscar Peck, PFC Daniel J. Shea, and all those who have died in our nation's wars. Our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who gave their lives for this country are laid to rest in places known and unknown throughout this nation and around the world. We know nothing of their individual thoughts and feelings at the hour of their death, but we do know they were patriotic, dedicated, and courageous. They loved America, believed in the ideals for which it stands. They paid the highest price for freedom, and we honor them all for it. The blessings of freedom require never-ending vigilance. From the early days of our nation, each generation has played an active, vital role in maintaining our freedom. Had even a single generation been lax or indifferent, we would have risked the loss of that precious freedom. Keeping our country secure is the responsibility of all Americans. But those in uniform must face each day the challenge of this responsibility as set forth by our founding fathers. Roger Sherman, one of the first Connecticut delegates, holds the unique distinction of being the only man to sign the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and our Constitution. He, as well as other signers of our Constitution, knew it was important and fixed forever as one of the cornerstones of our democracy when they wrote in the preamble to the Constitution, that it was our job in the military to provide for the common defense. The concept of the common defense was important to them then. It was their intention to make the defense the responsibility of every citizen. The American Continentals and the militia were not professional soldiers in the European sense. They were a people's army of citizen soldiers fighting for a cause. That cause has remained foremost in our nation since 1776. We now know that continued peace requires ongoing effort and renewed sacrifice. Time and again, Americans have, throughout military service, responded to their nation's call. The active Army, National Guard, the Army Reserve train daily to make every effort to be prepared. Today's Army faces challenges unlike any other in our history. Our enemies are now capable of striking targets in our own country. Their forces, which greatly outnumber those of the United States, continue to expand and modernize. To meet this challenge, we must be strong. Strong enough to deter war and to win if combat is forced upon us. To be strong, we must man the Army with quality people, train effectively, modernize our forces, and be able to mobilize in a sufficient and timely manner so we can influence the early stages of the conflict. In Connecticut, your Army National Guard ranks 5th in the nation with respect to unit readiness. The quality of our people is above the norm. The modern Army has come a long way from the citizen soldiers of the First Continental Army. Then soldiers were poorly fed and clothed. They often lacked sufficient weapons and ammunition. Today's soldiers have access to some of the most modern, up-to-date weapons, equipment, and training available. But the American warrior himself has changed little over the years since that first shot was fired at Lexington. Given a challenge and able leadership, the American soldier will endure hardship and undergo any sacrifice in order to win. Today's soldier Americans, sons and daughters, share a common bond with all veterans and American soldiers of all ages. That bond is a commitment to uphold those freedoms we cherish so dearly, to make the ultimate sacrifice, if necessary, to defend those freedoms established by our forefathers in the likes of Roger Sherman and others when they penned and ratified our Constitution. It is because of that difference that citizens willingly serve today. So today need not be a sad occasion. It need not be a time of tears. We can be glad and thankful that there once walked upon this earth people such as you honor here today, the Vietnam veteran. Be proud of them, honor them, remember them. They are what America is all about. They served this country with distinction. They had a vision of what a strong and free America, and gave us the opportunity to expand on that vision as time goes on. A rich heritage has been passed to us to build upon for our future posterity. Let us meet the challenge before us. Let us never fail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colonel Bowen. The highest ranking military officer in our now 9-town area is Major General Herbert Riley. His career started 34 years ago when he was drafted. Can't believe that, Major General being drafted. But he was drafted as an enlisted man in 1951 in the Korean conflict. He served in the occupation forces in Japan. He continued his military service in the United States Army Reserve. He served in various and wide variety of assignments with great distinction. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame at the Infantry School at Fort Benning, Georgia. And upon his recent retirement, he was presented with the Distinguished Service Medal for exceptional meritorious service in positions of great responsibility. This decoration is the highest award by the Army in peace times. Ladies and gentlemen, our own Major General Herbert Riley.
Distinguished guests, fellow servicemen and women, families and friends, the names of our area veterans killed or missing in Vietnam, having been inscribed on this bronze statue to be unveiled today, is a day long to be remembered. Thursday, I talked to General Westmoreland about this statue, showing compassion and the humane side of our servicemen and women in Vietnam. He told me to tell those attending the ceremony that he heard about the statue and was excited about it, and asked me to pass on his congratulations to those responsible. Another man asked me to tell those in attendance today that this unveiling was a great tribute to our servicemen and women who served in Vietnam. He was a Medal of Honor winner in Vietnam by the name of Major Patrick Brady. I would now like to read to you the Major Pat Brady story. For Army Major Patrick Henry Brady, it was just another day of action in Vietnam. A day not very different from any other day. I had worse in terms of losing aircraft and numbers of patients, he recalls. It so happens that that day, people saw it and took time to write about it. What they saw on January the 6th, 1968, was Brady evacuating 51 wounded men during the course of a violent day of battle using 3 helicopters near the village of July. On one flight, he evacuated 2 wounded South Vietnamese soldiers from a completely fogged valley using his rotor blade to clear away the fog. During one flight, he volunteered to land his aircraft in an enemy minefield. A mine exploded near his helicopter, damaging the aircraft. He still managed to lift off, rescuing 6 wounded American soldiers in the process. For his actions, Brady received the Medal of Honor. I would like to read to you his comments upon receiving the Medal of Honor. Brady spent 2 tours in